Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Good morning and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino. And today I have a special guest. I want to give you a little bit of her background before I introduce her. She's a top awareness coach for 2023, two-time best-selling author in 2022, connective behavior therapist, vision board facilitator, online course creator, and a leader in her field. I have a pleasure of having Pauline Grouette. Hey, Pauline, how are you?
Hi, I'm great, Cesar. Thanks. Nice to be
Definitely.
here.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. Besides that, and there's there's a lot more things you've done. You've achieved many things in your life. You have no intention of stopping. You're a survival of traumatic events like abuse, rape, suicidal ideologies, and single parenting in an extremely judgmental society. You've coached quite a few people. You've been through so much. You've done a whole lot of different things, and definitely excited for all of that. Why don't we start by you telling me a little bit about your background? Where are you originally from, and how was that upbringing for you?
Like quite a few people, traumatic childhood. And it's funny, kind of, as a child, when you're going through everything, you don't realize how messed up it is until you're an adult, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and my parents, you know what? I've done a lot of my own healing. So before I dive deep into this, I just always like to say that, you know what, they did the best with what they could, with what they were aware of, right?
Right.
And so yeah, my childhood, there was to start it off, I never knew my real dad. There were many, I was raised Roman Catholic. There were a lot of lies, lots of judgment, lots of things that, they're just hidden because all the society's judgment on everything you think of, it's everywhere, and people don't realize, even like subliminally, how much it affects you. So as a child, it's almost like I instinctively knew that, yeah, this is a little bit messed up, but I know that I can do so much more than,
Right.
than what people are telling me. And I was a very hyper child. I was always asking questions. I was always curious about everything. And so all of that curiosity was stifled, all my creativity was stifled. But that never stopped me from, doing whatever I could do. At the age of 10, my parents decided to move away from the city and purchase a rural hotel. So with that, partially to my benefit, I had even more freedom. So I don't want to use the word abandoned because, Sundays we came together as whatever kind of family that looked like. We had our family meal. But in between there, I got 10 years old, I had to make sure I was fed and got to school and made my own lunches and all of those things. And that was put on me as at a really young age. So I had to learn to become resilient. And with that little bit of freedom, though, I really do see it as a gift because I was able to see what was going on in the world around me. And I ended up in club that we have here. It's called 4-H, Head, Heart, Health, and Hands. and still remember it.
Yeah.
And so that just taught me life skills, sewing, a lot of like I was able to be creative there and also develop leadership skills. All of those things that my parents never had taught me. So like they were just so busy with the hotel that, we were the last things on their mind.
Yeah, and it was interesting, and kind of going back to that. One thing that with you sharing that we have in common, I never met my biological father either growing up, and very similar to you at an early age. I had to learn some skills and essentially start working to be able to provide even for our family, right? Which at that time was just my mom and my grandmother and my older brother. So it was really just us. And a lot of times people don't realize and perhaps don't see how. And I want to get your opinion on this. Is that your growing up can have a lot to do with what could possibly be your outcome, right? The fact that maybe you don't have you didn't grow up with your biological parents, or the fact that, again, and I like what you mentioned, it's not necessarily saying that you're abandoned, except the circumstances, right, of them working or doing whatever they had to do. For a kid, though, it might seem like I was abandoned. It might seem like, hey, I'm here on my own, because I know I felt that too. Like, I know for me growing up is like my mom had to make some sacrifices yet again. Now I see it, then I didn't, then I'm like, dude, what did I do? I'm abandoned, like, all these different things, all these emotions. And and then people decide to, we as kids, then that's where I think there's two paths, right, that are laid out in front of us for the most part. Maybe three, I would say two primarily. One is, I'm gonna go that route and I'm gonna do whatever I can to maybe get through it by my own and learn the skills and do this or do that. And or I'm gonna go the other path where now I'm being brought into a community, or I'm feeling like I'm part of something, right? Because my
Right.
friends are not there, yet they're that bad influence, and then you start doing things that you're not supposed to do in life, and you get into drugs and you get into gangs and you get into all those different things.
Yeah.
At least that's how you see it. What's your thought on that? And obviously you kind of grew through that and learned through that, and you went through that. Again, as a kid you don't see it, though. Now you're like, okay, maybe I see the struggles, the challenges, things that they went through, right? For
Yeah.
me, what I have.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I love the fact that you touched on the whole like lack of father influence,
Right.
because one thing that I've just been through is like I'm not sure exactly, like I just believe that the universe has our back. You know,
Right. Right.
Karma is amazing. And I
Yeah.
love her to death. And um so like I like the best thing my mom taught me was who I didn't want to be like. So kind of like how you were talking about, they did the best they could. You could take the one road or the other road. And so for me, I was very, very observant, and I'm very grateful for that, because I saw exactly who I did not want to become. So that made me strive to take the other road. On that note, though, the whole abandonment thing is, I guess in a sense, yeah, I definitely did feel that abandonment. Even though I had a stepdad, he wasn't my dad. He was not part of me. I was always missing that 50% where, who the hell am I? And so, yeah, so right from the beginning, like I really truly believe that we pick our parents,
Right.
come into this world, we pick our parents. And I just happened to be going through baby pictures and kid pictures, because I'm doing a big mind dumping right now,
Yeah.
because I'm writing my own book. And so I came across this picture. I must have been about between, I guess, maybe 4 to 6 months old. And the look on my face was literally like, what the hell did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but so all of the lies and everything, my biological father was not in my life at all. But my mom and my stepdad kept him from me,
Mm.
because now that I've done lots of my deep healing, um, I know that he had come to the house at one point.
Mm.
I was maybe 6 or 7, and my mom's like, go to your room, right?
Got it.
And then and there was a few like then other things where my older sister would be going to see her dad, and I'd be like, okay. And then my younger sister, okay, you're her. That's I put the pieces together. And I was like, Where do I fit in here?
Right.
And so that whole trying to figure out who I was very, very real.
Mm.
And I can remember specifically when I was probably about 11 or 12, sitting on the swing set, and we had been in the new community at that point. And I remember making up stories about who my dad was,
Yeah.
because it was bad enough that my mom had been divorced. And so the fact that, I wanted to make some kind of normalcy in my life, right?
Mhm.
So I remember making up stories to people that I would meet about who he might be. So, and the interesting thing on that note that I want to say is I actually just finished doing DNA testing.
Ah.
And because I ended up, we only have a short amount of time here, but
Oh, no way. This is good.
putting this all in my book. But yeah, actually, there's a TV show that comes out called Secrets, Lies, and DNA Ties. It's actually coming out for March 6th, I believe it was.
Okay.
And so that's my paternal side of my story.
Ah.
So I can't tell you the total outcome.
Right. Yeah. No. Definitely. Let me ask you this: Are you a middle child?
Yes, I suffer from middle child syndrome. Definitely.
Okay, so again, this all of this is very interesting, right? And definitely, I think that again, I go back to the idea of you know you sometimes don't know who you are until you know who you are. Like you got to be able to. Also, I also believe that even as a kid, right, when you're taking a particular path, you get to your adulthood and all that good stuff. Is sooner or later, you can go back and you can look back and say, you know what? I think I knew who I was even when I was a kid, even though I didn't realize it because I'm becoming that person. I'm taking
Right.
those steps, and so again, I'm finding so many different similarities, which is pretty cool. I'm also a middle child, and I believe that there's also an element with that because again,
Yes.
at least from my perspective, again, kind of going back to the abandonment. It was growing up, it was my older brother, myself, my mom, my grandma, then my mom left, and whole story on that too. And even when my brother ended up getting a scholarship to go to one of the top universities in the U.S., I felt abandoned. I remember being 18, 19, and I literally broke in tears, and I was telling my brother, like, you left me. And again, here we go. I'm 18, 19. I'm already a young adult, and I still had those emotions, right? And then at the same time, I'm thinking I'm the middle child, and I have my little brother who was born, and then I felt like, well, when I finally was reunited with my parents and my mom and my stepdad, the attention was going to my little brother. I'm like, where did I fit in, right? And so again, I feel like there's always many different things happening there. Where like, as a middle child, there's a lot of different elements. Then you have a father or mother, whatever that case may be, and you're like thinking like, okay, I got to do something here with my life, right? And so I want to
Yeah.
touch base with that on you because when you mentioned that, it's like, okay, that kind of triggered that, and it reminded me of there's also people can go through those things, and so more importantly, how do you start coming out of that and start saying, you know what, obviously you got very busy, you started learning skills and things like that. How do you step away from all of that and start bringing that to a full circle?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah,
uh wow.
it's a
Okay.
process for sure.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Like I said, that's a loaded question. Okay, so when I started really deciding that this is messed up and I have to do something different. How you were saying, like, you're 18, 19, but the feeling of abandonment, the thing is that older brother was probably kind of like a father figure,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And so for me, okay, so my grandfather was kind of like my father
Mm,
figure. We were really, really close. And because I was always striving to find that masculine energy to make up for the loss, right? So for me, so my grandfather and I grew up, we were very close. We did tons of stuff together. He used to make me, like, toys out of wood and things like that, and
mm,
gardening and all those things, yard work, right? And in the process, um, there's a lot of bad things that happened. And it was so traumatic, I put it aside. I blocked it out.
mm.
And so even family events, things that happened, I didn't know why. All I knew is I'm not hugging you anymore. I'm not going near you. I don't want to be in the same room as you. That's all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a big block. And then first year university comes around, and my girlfriend and I are, we're being all cool, doing an all-nighter, studying for the exam the next day. And she breaks out crying. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, I just realized I was sexually abused. And I was like, what are you talking about? So we start talking. I was like, holy crap. So was I. And
You're
the
going like, I'm living
floodgates,
that. I'm going through that. Yeah.
yeah, the floodgates opened. Screw the exam. And yeah, it was ridiculous. And so all of those doors opened, and I was like, Jesus Murphy. So I that was when I was like, okay, it's bad enough I didn't know who my dad was, and that was messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But for this to happen, and that's when the whole suicidal thoughts came in, and what the heck am I doing here? What do I have to keep living for? I can still tell you to this day, where, like, going down, live on a really curvy road,
Yeah.
and exactly where I was going to do it,
Wow.
and how, and everything. It was real. It was real. And I finally made the decision that, okay, what's the purpose of that though? You can do so much more than what they are all telling you. So I was like, screw them. No, you know what? I'm here for a reason, and you're not going to tell me anymore. So unfortunately for my parents, that's when the real headbutting started.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
But you know what? That's when the true journey started, through my first bout of counseling and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Right. And one things that you mentioned there, again, obviously, it's not an easy thing to go through any kind of,
so,
any of that experience, right? Whether it's child abuse, trauma, suicidal thoughts, any of that. I mean, that, as you mentioned, that's a very real, right? And it happens more often than we think. And obviously, my
yeah,
advice to anyone listening to this is that you got to speak up. You got to get to somebody to help you. To just, there's got to be somebody, whether it's a friend or maybe a family member, that can definitely listen to you, or contact any of us here too. The point that I'm trying to make with all of that, though, is that you mentioned that you started thinking and you decided and said, what is that gonna serve? What purpose is that gonna do? Right? A lot of times, I believe that we feel like, if we were to go through with that, and just with those suicidal thoughts and go through that, we believe that perhaps the pain is going to end for us, without realizing there's going to be more pain being left behind for the ones that really truly love and care for you, right? And so we forget about that thing. Except you mentioned you made a decision, and I do believe that, regardless of what you're going through, that the choices and the decisions that we make today will determine the quality of life that we have tomorrow. And therefore, we got to be able to sit back and say, okay, what choice am I making today, and is this the right choice? And if it's not, we do have the option to pivot immediately and make a new choice, right? Now, I know that when you're going through suicidal thoughts and you're going through things that are very dramatic, or traumatic for that matter, it's not as easy as that, right? And so,
right.
how do you, for people that might be, going through some major things right now, right? How can you stop stepping away from those thoughts, to be able to say, you know what? No, I definitely need to shift. I need to make that change. I need to make that decision, because I know it's a process. And again, sometimes that's the last thing you think. You want to just hurt yourself or do something even crazier, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the biggest thing for me is I don't like pain.
Okay, good.
So for me, I just kind of, like, at first I kind of just weighed the pros and cons, and I just kind of, um like you were kind of saying, is that the outcome, what if, okay, whatever I attempted to do didn't work, and I ended up a paraplegic, and I ended up, things could be so much worse than where I am now. And so I just kind of weighed the pros and cons, and I just kind of realized that, you know what, you're put on this earth for a reason. And anybody having those thoughts right now, allow yourself to just get out in nature. The biggest thing, get out of the house, get out in nature and get some fresh air. Number one, clear your head. Even if it's hard and it feels like everything is in there, it's all jumbled up, getting out in nature and just really looking at those trees, intentionally looking at all the things around you, listening to the sounds, using all of your senses, and just really allowing yourself to feel those feels. And then weigh those pros and cons. Because you know what? Ultimately, it's not even about the people you're going to leave behind. It's about you in that moment and believing in yourself and what you're capable of, because so many people don't understand the full potential of what they're capable of.
Yeah.
So it's I think that's even bigger.
Right. Yeah. And I think the other thing too that people might be faced with is the idea of, well, I don't believe in myself, and I don't even know where to start. I don't know the potential. I
Yeah.
don't know all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? And so that's
Yeah.
that's the other part too, is that you got to be able to go through that discovery phase of figuring out exactly how you fit into all of this, and say, and I agree with you. I mean, I do believe, for the people that are listening, whether you believe in God, the universe, whatever greater power you believe in, I do believe that if you're listening to this, you're watching this podcast right now, this second, that means that greater power is not done with you, which means that there's so many things, greater things for you to do. You still can do a lot more. And so again, I agree with you. We're not just here to wake up, eat, sleep, cry, do all this stuff. We're here for a purpose, and we got to be able to find out what the purpose is and go out and get it, right? And so there's definitely a lot of work to be done. And so let's talk about that, because obviously you've done so many different accomplishments. You've got all these different awards. There's obviously there was a process that you did, right, throughout your journey of saying, okay, I'm not gonna take my life, and I'm going to start making those shifts. And there's other things you did. What were some of the things that you did? Some of those mind changes or things that you worked on?
Oh, the biggest thing is, okay, well, so after I was kind of going through my counseling, first time, I ended up in a very abusive relationship because I thought I could fix him.
Got it. Yes.
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen. You can't fix anybody.
Right.
People have to realize the person has to want to fix himself. And so
Yeah.
anyways,
Sorry, and to kind of go back to that, and this with anything, I think, we have to recognize that you cannot help somebody that doesn't want to be helped.
exactly. And that's a really hard concept.
Right.
When you're in that mode, it's a really hard concept because you're like, it just doesn't compute,
Right. Right.
And but having said that, it's all about timing, and yeah, it'll happen when it's meant to happen. I truly believe that. And so kind of like this show.
Yeah, exactly.
We're meant to be doing this today. So
Yes.
but so getting to my answer here is, okay, so I ended up in a very abusive marriage. Every kind of abuse other than physical, which would have been better. At least I would have had the bruises and the broken limbs to show it. But so got out of there. 3 kids later, hence that's when the rape happened. And very messed up. Very messed up. I was in a dark place. My kids were what kept me going. I had 2 sons and a daughter. My daughter's the youngest. She was 8 months old when this happened. And I just got to the point where I just finished my counseling for my grandfather, and he passed away. But on that week, so how this happened, the pivotal moment here for me is I was able to, I knew I had to somehow forgive him in order for me to move on. And I went to my grandparents, and I think my grandmother knew the whole time, but you don't talk about anything, right? So,
Yeah.
so she there was a show on the news that happened to come on. I was there at supper time, and they were talking about sexual abuse, and it was just starting to be talked about. This was probably like early mid 90s,
Okay.
and mid to late 90s. And so she looked at me really differently, and she's like, "Oh, there's, they're talking a lot about this now." And she said her thing, and I just looked at her and I said, the funny thing is it happens a lot more closer to home than you realize. And
Mm,
my grandfather happened to be coming down the hallway, and we had this little thing that we used to do as kids, well, when I was a child and or
mm,
teenager, where we would share our meals, like,
mm.
but literally, like it was just a little thing
Yeah.
I can't even, not worth your time right now. But he was coming down the hallway, and I specifically looked at him and said, "It happens closer to home than you realize." And right at that moment, he knew exactly what I was talking about. He put his head down and he walked back down the hallway.
Mm.
The next morning, he passed away.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was pivotal for me
Right.
because he knew I forgave him. I'm not happy with it. How
Right.
dare you and everything else, but I forgive you.
Right.
That doesn't erase the memories. That doesn't excuse your behavior, but forgiveness is necessary for him to go. Because then, since I was like we lost that relationship that we had when I was a child. And so from when the abuse started, when I was about 10 to 15, 16, I just got a lot craftier about being able to get away faster. That sounds terrible, but it's true.
Right.
And he knew he was just living, waiting for my forgiveness.
How old were you when that took place?
I was about 28.
28. So definitely from when it started to that. I mean, it was a long time, and obviously, like
Yeah,
you mentioned, he was waiting for that.
yeah,
It's very very fascinating because again, I want people to take a good point of this, and you just left two great things there, golden nuggets, I would say. The first thing is, I think it was I forget. I think it was Will Smith or somebody. I was listening to him a while back before he slapped somebody in the Grammys, where he was talking about it is not your fault that your husband or wife left you. It's not your fault that you were verbally abused. It is not your fault that you were raped, and that's very important. You need to understand it's not your fault that took place. Except he says it is your damn responsibility to do something about it, right?
right,
And so I think that's huge because we have to a lot of times we blame ourselves and we don't do nothing about it. It's better to not blame yourself and understand that things happen. It happened, and it's, as you mentioned, it's not acceptable. It's not something that I condemn any of that stuff, except again, it wasn't your fault. It is your responsibility. The second thing you mentioned that I think is huge is that a lot of times, like, nah, I'm pissed. I'm not gonna forgive that person. That they did this to me. And then you start going down that memory lane of all the things that they've done to you, without realizing that forgiveness is not so much for them. It's really more for you to let go and say, you know what, I'm I'm okay with this in terms of like I'm not okay with what took place, but I'm okay to move on. I'm okay to say, you know what, I'm not holding any more grudges. I need to move on for
right,
my own sanity. That's
right,
huge.
right. And so yeah, no, it is huge. And so from there, um, yeah, so that gave me, but she was 8 months old. So with his death, that big pivotal moment, that was my big thing where I now had the strength that no more was I going to let my husband at the time treat me
Mm,
this way and allow my children to see that this is the way women are supposed to be treated. No way.
right.
It all stopped now. So um, long story short, got rid of him. Luckily, my eldest son, his coach was a police officer, and then I didn't know anything about drugs. Like
Yeah.
I found these things. I brought them to the hockey, and he's like, "Where'd you get this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's on the heat duct here." And
Yeah.
I don't know, like a Bic pen, and I guess, and it was like for cocaine or whatever. I don't know that
Right.
much about drugs, so, and what I know, I don't need to know anything else.
Right.
But
Exactly.
but so
That makes two
anyway,
of us.
pardon me?
I say that makes two of us.
Yeah, yeah. So, but what I know is enough to know that I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
So, so he helped me. Basically, I left for it was Valentine's Day, actually. It was February 14th, and he's belittling and, being abusive. And I finally said to him, "You know what? You're going to say this to me like one last time, and I'm going to be gone for good." Like, he used to call me every name in the book. And
Yeah.
anyway, and February 15th, 10 a.m., did it again, called this police officer. And I told my ex, I said, "You know what? I'm dropping the children off at daycare. I'm going to work. You need to have your stuff packed and out. Otherwise, I will have the police with me."
Hmm.
And yeah, and that was it. And so I was in survival mode for a few years, counseling again.
Yeah.
And the I was in survival mode, and the other pivotal moment for me, what triggered getting me out of that survival mode and just surviving, not even really paying attention. Like, of course, the kids were fed and, clothed and everything else and taken care of. Um, but I did not have the ability in myself to go beyond that. And I was helping my aunt move. And so I was packing up photos and everything. And there was a picture of this cute little girl crawling. And I was like, and I knew everybody, because even though I was the single parent who had the three kids, I was the one who they knew they could rely on to get whatever done in the family. So I was helping my aunt move. And I said, "Well, who is this little girl?" And she looked at me very quizzically and she goes, "That's Tatiana, that's my daughter." And I broke down and cried. I missed her whole
Wow.
infanthood. I just did not, I was not there. And so from that day, I decided, I changed my health. I started exercising. I started eating a lot better. Getting up earlier. I changed my whole routine.
Yeah.
And my kids were my focus.
Yeah. Would you say, and I think the answer might be yes. Nevertheless, I want you to tell me that. Um, would you say that when you found out, right, a lot of times, because, we go through life ourselves, and it seems like it's not enough for us to find a purpose on our own self. Sometimes we need somebody else's focus, or somebody else's, that's my why kind of thing, right? Would you say that was the case for you? Obviously, you were going down this rabbit hole, and you couldn't get out of it on your own, except when you realize, no, I got to be there for my kids, and you made them your focal point and your
Yeah.
why, your purpose, that helped you.
Yeah, definitely. Because I didn't have any of that emotional support or anything as a child. Nothing.
Got
There
it.
were no hugs, no kisses, nothing. I had none of that.
Yeah.
So, like, you weren't allowed to show emotions. You had to be tough. You had to, no. So, and I'm, French Roman Catholic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And no, so there was no way in hell I was going to let my kids, um, think that it was normal or
Right.
be raised the same way I was.
Right. Yeah. You definitely wanted to change that trajectory, and have a
Oh,
different.
exactly.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And so, as you started, going through that, eating better, taking care of yourself, you obviously have accomplished so much now, right? Top awareness coach for 2023, two-time best-selling author in 2022. You're a therapist, vision board facilitator, online course. You have so many different things. How did that come about and come into play?
I went back to school.
Yeah.
I you know, yeah, I went back to school, and I thought, well, you know what, there's never going to be a good time. And I knew the money that I was making at the time, it just wasn't going to cut it. because I got no support from my ex or his family, and like financially, mentally, physically, anything. So, and same with from my family. I like there was no like support there either. They were still living in the country. I was in the city now. And so I went back to school, and I don't even know how I did it. I lived, breathed, and drank the dental world.
Yeah.
And I had a dental career for 22 years, and became a dental assistant. And I just, yeah, I like the kids would be brushing their teeth at night, and I'd be like centrals, laterals,
Yeah.
customers,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I just lived, breathed, and like in school. And so I figured, um if anything, even though it's really, really hard, I'm being a good role model for my kids, because they can see how hard you have to work in school, in life, to get to where you want. So they saw me graduate, they saw me complete specific milestones in my dental
Mm,
career. I was on the dental board for the executive board for 6 years. Um, all of their sports teams and everything else, I was always either the manager, the treasurer, or fundraising coordinator, something. And I always taught them to give back, because as a single parent, and I didn't make very much money, luckily I was able to be subsidized by the government for quite a few things, like having two kids as hockey goaltenders, and then my daughter. Everybody was always in sports, and um, so a way of giving back to the community centers by volunteering, to show
mhm.
that just that how grateful I was for all
Yeah.
that. So
No, that's huge. And so, what are you doing right now? Are you primarily coaching? Are you still in the dental field?
you know what? The funny thing that just happened actually in the last couple of weeks
Yeah.
is, okay, so last April, I gave up my dental license.
Oh, okay.
And that was huge. It was huge because it was my life for 22 years. And so it kind of hit me like a brick wall, because everybody was relied on me for so many things, and they'd still be contacting me. I'm like, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done. And yeah, so now what I'm doing, actually, funny enough, is I laid, the foundation, did all my coaching. I've been a coach I've been coaching technically for like 25 plus years,
Right.
through all the treatment plans and everything, but licensed since 2020, and cognitive behavior therapy for 2020. And so I decided to go full force into coaching. Absolutely loved it. Dentists kept getting a hold of me. They wanted me to start consulting. So
Yeah.
because they knew that my outlook with my coaching experience and everything else, it was a different mindset. So I started dental consulting. And then I knew there was a dental book in me somewhere. And so right now, what I'm working on is actually my story. So
Okay.
that's why I'm doing all the mind dumping and everything,
Nice.
and writing my story, which I aim to have done by the fall of this year. And then also my dental story. And that's just, um, it's called Dental Superheroes, the real undercurrents in the dental world.
Mm,
And the real superheroes are the patients.
right.
Even if you're a dental professional, you're a patient.
Yeah.
You have teeth, you're a patient.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have teeth, you're a patient.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
those are the dental heroes, the people
Nice.
brave enough to actually go to the dentist, um, you know, see their fears, and have somebody hopefully who is as, empathetic as I was, to walk them through that treatment plan, so that
Yeah.
they can get to the goals and develop that confidence that everybody does have in them.
Right. Yeah. No, that's huge. So that we're
So,
definitely
yeah,
gonna be in the lookout for that book.
yeah,
For sure.
thanks.
So yeah. No,
It's
that's
called
good.
The Other Pauline. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So if people wanted to learn more about your coaching business, or the things that you have going on, where can they contact you, or how can they contact you?
My website was just actually totally revamped. Launches today. It's
Nice.
guidedjourneycoaching.ca. Um, and yeah, they can contact me there. I'm also a vision board facilitator. So if they want a workshop for themselves or their office, anything like that. I could do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go to the website. All my contact information is there. They can just put their email in there. That's the easiest way to do it.
Gotcha. No, that's good. So, you've given us so many different, real life lessons, and again, what I call some really good golden nuggets. For the people that are listening to us, maybe you can give us one more. If they're going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what are some things or one thing that they can start doing to start overcoming that challenge?
The biggest thing to remember is, and this is in my first book is called There's No Challenge Too Big, Bring It On. And even when it seems like you don't have a choice and you're stuck in that corner, maybe break it down a little bit. There's always a choice, always. Even if that choice is something that, oh, you're scared, what are people going to think? Do it. And I know you might be thinking, looking at me going, oh, well, it's easy for her to say, look what she's done. And like, at the time,
right.
No, I was scared shitless. Like I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but I knew, like, think of it this way, that if you're not doing anything about it, how is that going to make any changes? Only those actions, even baby steps, are going to make a difference. And one thing I love reminding people is that even if you make a choice that didn't turn out how you wanted to, make a different choice. You always have a choice.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to get out of that corner and make your life different.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. And also, again, going back to that, I also believe, though, that, again, you not making a choice is making a choice of not making a choice, right? And so you definitely have to make a choice, something. You got to create something.
Yeah.
And I guess more than anything, believe in yourself. Like, have a little bit of faith that things can get better. And to an extent, you kind of know what to expect at the end of whatever you're doing, that journey. What might be a little bit blurry is the path, right? Like, I know I want to be drug free. I know I want to be out of this relationship. I know I want to, probably have a job that pays me a little bit better. That's the outcome. And sometimes you just don't know how to get to that outcome, except have faith in that and maneuver through it. And you're going to get through it, right? I do believe that it's going to happen. Yeah. Oftentimes we get hung up too much on the house, and because of that, then we don't take action. And because we don't take action, then we end up being in the same place and nothing happens, right?
Yeah. But Caesar, that's where a good coach comes in.
Yeah, exactly. That is correct. That is correct. Yes.
And that's another big lesson that I had to learn as well, is actually sometimes you actually have to spend the money to make, to get there. And then you say, well, I don't have the money. I'm a single parent. I'm blah, 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 blah. If it means something to you, you'll find the money.
Right. I agree with you.
Not making the excuses.
True. Yep. No, I agree. I agree. Yeah. I've had so many coaches throughout my life too, and it's true. It's definitely true.
Yeah.
Do you have any? I know we talked earlier about you kind of go out into nature and do this and do that. Do you have any daily habits or things that you do on a day-to-day basis to kind of keep you going and up and going and in this positive mindset?
Yeah. Well, first thing in the morning, I always go outside. This might sound silly, but every morning I go out. I'm up at 5 o'clock, and it's still dark.
Even at the cold weathers at 5 o'clock.
Oh yeah.
That's not for me.
Oh yeah, Caesar and I were talking before. Yeah, it's minus 27 here right now. But yeah, no, I go out and, like, depending on the day, of course, but there's always like the stars, the moon, whatever. Yeah. I just always welcome the day. Like, and it might sound silly, but I talk to a lot of inanimate objects.
Yeah.
And so I welcome the day, and I get out, you start moving, and the first 2 hours, it's blocked off in my schedule. So move, journal, meditate, eat a healthy breakfast, and get your day going. And the night before, I just really make sure that I'm already prepared for the next day.
Yeah.
Because then you're not stressing about, oh, did I do this? Did I do that? Well, no, you're confident that it's done. my bag's packed, my papers are ready to go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the thing is too that you have to realize it's not going to happen overnight. Like, people are very impatient.
Yeah,
And they think that, oh, again, geez, how am I going to do all of this? And the big thing is not to get overwhelmed. And again, that's where a good coach comes in to
right.
help you take those baby steps.
Yeah, and the other thing too, I was gonna ask, because I've seen this a lot of times, is like sometimes people. Well, let me ask you this better. Do you think it's important to have some sort of routine, some sort of daily
Oh, for
habits?
sure.
Because I'm
Oh, you
sure
have to.
that probably
Yeah.
before you didn't have that, and as you transition, and you've seen a big difference, right? I mean, it's definitely
Yes.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely, definitely. Like, because I've been in points where, like, I've been very, very strict, really rigid with kids, as you know.
Yeah.
You can easily get distracted easily. But then, you know what? I've always come back to my routines, because that is what keeps you going. That's, you just feel overall healthier. Your mind is clearer. You're able to make better decisions, and with those better decisions, you get your better outcomes.
Yeah.
And like, the other thing is that if you end up in a spot where um, things seem to be piling up a little bit, and they're just kind of getting a little bit, you know, off the horse kind of thing, or off the wagon, whatever that
Yeah.
what that saying is.
Yeah.
The thing is, you can always get back on.
True.
Being able to give yourself that little bit of grace as well,
Yeah.
so that, what, because when it comes down to it, we're all people, we're not perfect. And being able to say, well, okay, yeah, today was kind of a shitty day, so
Hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna have this glass of wine, bottle of wine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, right. It's okay to have those moments, right? I mean, because again, we're all human beings. Again, I think the difference is, like, I've gone through some challenges myself too. We all go through challenges, right?
Yeah,
The difference I see now, though, for me, is that a person that might be going through the same challenges as I am, and I might pick up a glass of whiskey or wine or something, and somebody else might do the same thing. The major difference is that I've worked on myself, and so I know how to get, as you said, how to get back onto the wagon, right? Whereas somebody else has not gone through that, has not gotten a coach, has not gone through the process of having those
exactly.
habits, those rituals, and therefore, the impact of that is going to be a lot greater, right? I do believe that when you
Exactly.
go through a disciplined, you listen to this kind of podcast, you get a coach, you're hanging around with the different kind of people, even when you're going through that tough, challenging moment, you're going to be able to pick up yourself a lot faster and have a better outcome than
Yes.
somebody that has not gone through that process.
You know what? That's an amazing point. Exactly. Exactly. And that's one thing where, again, like, by listening to these podcasts and
Right.
all of these things, people who have been there, it's accepting the fact that part of why we do what we do is so you can learn from us.
Right.
And, going from like A to C instead of A, B, C, and taking all those extra steps and making the same mistakes.
Right.
And yeah, and if you do make a lot of mistakes, then oh well, then that's the path you chose. But that's part of us getting our voice out there,
Right.
so that you can learn from our mistakes
Yep.
and learn, like, oh yeah, okay, this wasn't a very good idea. I still might try that just because I'm curious, but you will know quicker, because we've put the bug in your ear, in your head now, that okay, but this is what you can expect. It might be your outcome, and get out
Yeah.
of there faster.
No, definitely no. That's
Yeah,
huge. Um,
yeah, it is. Yeah.
yeah. Pauline, I definitely love this conversation.
Yeah.
Definitely enjoy this a whole lot. Is there anything else you want to share with us before I let you go?
No, you know what, Caesar, this was awesome. This truly was awesome. I really enjoyed talking to you. It's been great being here. Like I said, if anybody would like to contact me, yeah, Caesar's podcast is going to be up on my website now. It's
Good.
at guidedjourneycoaching.ca. And yeah, one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself is getting a coach.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yes,
Well, again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate all of
thank
the
you.
wisdom and all of the things that you share with us. Definitely, that's going to make a huge difference for our listeners. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure to connect with Pauline. Be on the lookout for her book coming out on the fall. And do me a favor, share this message, because definitely somebody needs to hear this message. I'll see you guys to the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything Podcast Show. Thank you.
Thank you, Caesar.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.